My name is Robert Neville. Sobriety date is August 10th, 2019. I was brought into treatment at Solstice through recovery court. I actually volunteered to come the first time around, but it didn't go as planned. So I was discharged, and a couple years later, more trouble later, I got into recovery court, and it was necessary. So I got more arrests that brought me into recovery court. I was arrested for unlawful entry and theft by unlawful taking, breaking and entering. That got me put on a pretrial intervention probation period of 2 years, which I was able to, maintain a job and, pay fines, things of that nature, but I never passed a drug test. So as the 2 years came to an end, I had a court for discharge that I skipped. So to put a warrant out, the lawyer calls and, you turn yourself in. So I had turned myself in on a Friday. I spent about 5 days in the county, and then I got released to a outpatient facility. It just didn't work that time. I think there was probably 2 or 3 other outpatients and maybe one inpatient prior to recovery court that just didn't seem to work because I probably didn't want them to work. I was just trying to satisfy the courts, not get clean.
Did Solstice do something to help make you realize you wanted to make that change?
The change for me occurred, I think, when I got accepted to recovery court. It was on a Monday, and they said, you're gonna report on Friday for orientation. So Friday came, and I had to do a urine screen. And I said, oh, well, I'm not going to pass. Well, what are we going to find? So I had told them what they were going to find, heroin and alcohol. And I had to take the test anyway. And then when I stood before the judge, he said that he warned me on Monday and put me in handcuffs. So I was sat in the county jail for a little over 30 days before I was released to a short-term program, which then turned into a long-term program, before coming home after about 5 or 6 months. The next step is outpatient, and that's where I came to Solstice.
What about Solstice was different than these other treatment centers for you?
What I found different about Solstice from other treatment centers was the facility itself, as compared to others I've been to, I thought was extremely clean and nice. And the amount of counselors they had, I thought, was also a lot more than other facilities I've been to. So it wasn't like it was talking to the same person for each group. There was counselor changes for groups and a variety of different clients I got to know and enjoyed spending group time with. I think it was a combination of being the right time and being around the right people. I started drinking, I think, in like the 5th grade. So
how did you get the alcohol in 5th grade?
I grew up on the other side of the river, and, older brothers, not mine, but just siblings, older siblings, stealing from parents, the little liquor cabinet or something. Like the first time I drank was in 3rd grade. I spent the night over somebody's house that lived on the same block, and his uncle was babysitting us, and he said, go grab me a beer from the fridge. So we did, and then I said, can I have one? And it was a Michelob Pony. I think I had about 5 of them. And I went outside, and it was the middle of summer. I thought it was snowing because I guess the buzz I had. So after that, I didn't have anything for probably like 2 years, but I think like 5th, 6th grade, summertime, hanging out with the kids older than us. We used to go to a spot we called Pebble Beach. It was, like a little hidden spot. And there'd just be, kids all ages just hanging out drinking. It started from like, a once in a while weekend type thing to all weekend to some weeknights. And as I got older, trying different substances and whatnot, things just progressively got bad to the point I was dependent on alcohol. At 9 o'clock, I had to be at the liquor store waiting for the guy to unlock the door so I could get my hands to stop shaking so that I could perform my job, or scoot around to the dope set so I could make it through the day without curling up in a ball and making a mess of myself from one end or the other.
When you said you were involved in burglaries, what were you breaking in for?
So I had separated from my wife. I had heard it through the grapevine that she was selling Oxycontin for her uncle. And she was going to Tennessee with other family and our kids. So being the addict I thought it was a great idea to break in and find the script, because I thought, why would she take the script on vacation with her? To me, it didn't make sense. So I was hoping to hit the jackpot, and I did not. I did use my trade skills to enter the premises. And then in rooting through the apartment for what I wanted, I didn't find. I actually found the key. So on my way out, I turned and I was hoping it worked, and it did. But the neighbor was standing right there at the door. And so when the wife came back home, she called the police. One thing led to another. They said, come down here. We just have to ask you some questions about what happened. It's like, all right, well, I'll stop in tomorrow. About an hour later, I had 2 police officers at the door to take me into custody. And at the time, my sister, posted the bail or the bond or whatever it's called. So I avoided jail time at that particular time. I started working for a locksmith in high school. I was in a co-op program because I didn't want to be at school. So you get out at like noon to go, work part-time throughout the school year. So I started in '97. After I graduated, I was offered full-time position. I really enjoyed it. I was good at it. I got to use my hands, and I thought I was making decent money. So it kind of turned into a career. The first company I worked for, I was 17 when I started with them, and probably about 34 when they fired me because I was intoxicated at work. I would use the work credit card for personal purchases, steal money from the register. I would, collect payments for jobs, not turn them in. I felt entitled, like I deserved it, or I'd get away with it, but it didn't work out. I'm surprised that they kept me because they've had to know for a while because it was going on for such a long time. But I guess they finally said, we can't do this anymore, and out I went. I was unemployed for about 3 months. I found another locksmith job in Center City. The guy and myself did not see eye to eye, and that lasted for about a week. And then through a former coworker, I had got employed with Haddon Locksmith, and I bought the company in July of this year. So I was here for 3 years because I liked the place so much and loved the counselor so much. So I ran through it like 3 or 4 times. I was about 2 to 3 years clean when I got the Solstice logo tattoo.
Yes! Do you know anyone else that has a Solstice logo tattooed on their body?
So my counselor told me that one of her clients had it on one of his fingers, but like blended in. So unless you were actually looking for it, it was hard to see. I told Nikki, because I would every time I saw her, I'd show up with a new tattoo. I said, well, I'm going to get one for Solstice too. I come back to Solstice and talk to groups because I feel like I'm in debt to Solstice for changing my life. If anything I can say, might spark something in somebody else for their recovery to move forward, I think that's a pretty good thing. Experience, strength, and hope.